Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And as always, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia. And what a week in the NFL we had on Sunday. We had a big old snow game. We had Carson Wentz tearing his ACL and pretty much ruining Philly season for the rest of the year. Let's see, what else do we have? We had a few things. I mean, Tom Savage, he got hit and looked like he was having a seizure. I'm not completely sure if it was a seizure. That's what everyone's been saying, but I'm not going to say whether it was or it wasn't. The guy just pretty much his whole body went into shock, it looked like. And if that's what a seizure is, then I guess he had a seizure. But either way, the guy came out, and a few plays later, I think it was, he came back in. So, I mean, the NFL is going to be reviewing that. And what else do we have? Let's see. The Panthers won, so now they're tied with the Saints for first place. The Jags, looks like the Jags are a good team. They beat up on the Seahawks. I mean, they didn't beat up, but I mean, they did drop 30 points on them and came out with the win. So we'll actually talk about that game later on in the segment. But yeah, we're going to pretty much talk about the games going on today. Let's see what else we got going on. We're going to recap the Sunday night game from last night between the Steelers and Ravens. That was a fun one right there. Antonio Brown, shout out to him. He's gonna be in the top 5 for MVP. Should be top 3. Might even be able to win the award maybe. But shout out to him for helping out my fantasy team yesterday. And let's see what else we're gonna talk about. We'll talk about that Dolphins and Patriots Monday night game. We'll talk about Carson Wentz, what that means for Philly as they're losing him. And I think we're going to be talking about Carson Wentz and Tom Savage and all those guys in this third segment. And we'll talk about Monday Night Football in the last segment. Yeah, that's what we'll do. But yeah, so we're going to be doing all that, pretty much just talking about anything else, going on in the league. And I don't think there's really too much going around in college football, so maybe we'll do a couple of notes from there. But like I said, there's really not too much going on, so who knows, maybe we'll just skip it all together. But for this segment, like I said, how we usually do, we're going to go over the scores and stats for each game, so let's get into it right now. So we had the Vikings heading into Carolina. Carolina won that one 31-24. Case Keenum completed 27 out of his 44 passes, had 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Not a good game on the ground from either of Minnesota's running backs. Jerick McKinnon, 7 carries, 46 yards, and Latavius Murray had 9 carries for 14 yards. Adam Thielen had 6 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs, 6 receptions, 64 yards, and Kyle Rudolph had another touchdown in this game, 3 receptions, 41 yards, and like I said, that 1 touchdown. As for the Panthers, you had Cam Newton, 13-25 throwing the ball. 137 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Had 11 carries for 70 yards also. Jonathan Stewart, 16 carries, 103 yards, 3 touchdowns. Huge game from him. And then you had Devin Funchess with 3 catches for 59 yards and a touchdown. And once again, Carolina pulled that one out, 31-24. Next game, this was probably the biggest snow game of all time, I guess. Talking about just the amount of snow that was there. I can't remember anything. I can't remember any other recent snow games like this that were just as crazy. But yeah, if you watched the Indianapolis Colts and Buffalo Bills game and you turned it to that channel, I mean, pretty much it was pretty much like the Army-Navy game. All they were doing was running the ball, and whoever was able to get the most points. Obviously, I mean, obviously that's what you need to win a game. But it's pretty much whoever had the what's the word? Whoever had the, I can't think of it, but whoever had the honor of making it to the end zone after all these run plays was the team that was going to do well and win this game. And obviously the Bills pulled that one out 13-7. Jacoby Brissett went 11 of 22 throwing the ball, 69 yards and a touchdown. Frank Gore ran the ball 36 times and it had 130 yards. Let's see, Marlon Mack, 2 receptions, 21 yards. T.Y. Hilton, 2 receptions for 20 yards. And I think Jack Doyle had 2 catches for 4 yards and a touchdown. So not a good game throwing the ball or trying to catch the ball, obviously. Then you had Nathan Peterman. He went 5 of 10, 57 yards, 1 touchdown. Joe Webb came in. He had 2 completions out of 6 attempts. 35 yards, 1 interception. LaShawn McCoy, 32 carries, 156 yards, 1 touchdown. Let's see, for the Buffalo Bills receivers, the only notable one, Kelvin Benjamin, 3 receptions, 38 yards, and a touchdown. Let's see, the Chicago Bears, they headed into Cincinnati, and they beat down on the Bengals. Mitch Trubisky, 25 of 32 throwing the ball, 271 yards, 1 touchdown. Jordan Howard, big game from him, 23 carries, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Tariq Cohen had 12 carries for 80 yards also. And then you got Kendall Wright, who had 10 receptions for 107 yards. So a good game overall from the Chicago Bears offense. As for the Bengals, you had Andy Dalton, 14 of 29, 141 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Bengals are now 5-8 actually too, so they're done. Goodbye Marvin Lewis. Then you got Giovanni Bernard, 11 carries for 62 yards, and he also led the team in receiving. He had 6 receptions for 68 yards. AJ Green, 5 receptions, 64 yards, and then Brandon LaFell with the only touchdown of the game for Cincinnati. He had 3 receptions, 24 yards, and like I said, that 1 touchdown. I say goodbye Marvin Lewis, because if this team doesn't make the playoffs, then they'd be crazy to bring that guy back. I mean, they're crazy to have him even be here for this long. I mean, the guy makes the playoffs every year, but what good is it if you're getting blown out in the first round of the playoffs year after year and pretty much losing every time? So I'm not even over-exaggerating. The guy literally makes the first round of the playoffs every year, and pretty much, yeah, like I said, he just loses every year in the first round. So, I mean, it's crazy that they've even kept him in here for that long. It's been like, they're like that team in the NFL that goes 8-8 every year, and they keep their coach because you know what, they're going 8-8, not too many losing seasons. But like that translated over to the playoffs. So Marvin Lewis is that guy who makes the playoffs every year, and like I said, loses in the first round every year. But you know you don't really want to fire him because you know you're making the playoffs every year. So, but yeah, that guy's probably gone after this season, and I think he should be. I thought he should have gotten fired after last year. Because, I mean, how many times? It's been like 7-8 times that they've made the playoffs in the first round. They lost all 8 times, I think it is. So, I mean, last year was like pretty much the last straw for him, for me, I feel. But, you know what? Maybe they'll just can him this year. So, we'll see how it all ends up. But Green Bay, they headed into Cleveland. Cleveland let me down again, man. I picked them. You know, I was almost right about this pick. They almost won, but, you know, it's the Cleveland Browns. So, you know, they're going to give you, like, I don't know. Can I even say that Cleveland gives you some hope? I'm pretty much like Cleveland, you know, is going to be bad. So, I mean, you can't really expect much. You just show up to the games and hope it's not too bad. So, yeah, I can't even say they give you hope. But Green Bay won this one in overtime, 27-21. Brett Hundley, 35 of 46, 265 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jamal Williams, 15 carries, 49 yards, 1 touchdown. Also had 7 receptions for 69 yards and a touchdown. And then Devontae Adams, 10 receptions for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jordy Nelson still missing. If you guys find him, let me know. But yeah, the guy's been missing since Aaron Rodgers went down. So maybe it'll be good for him because Aaron Rodgers is probably going to come back next week. And shout out to Brett Hundley. I've hated on him for a while, I guess you could say, and never really thought he was a good quarterback. But you know, he did the job. He got it done. Now he's got Green Bay in a spot to where Rodgers can come back and lead him to playoffs. And you know what? Brett Hundley's going to be the backup quarterback for Green Bay for a bunch of years because he's not bad, I guess, like terrible as a backup quarterback. He pretty much comes in and he's mediocre enough to where you still have a chance, I guess, against the bad teams. So, yeah, shout out to him. But as for the Browns, you got Deshaun Kaiser. He went 20 of 28 throwing the ball, 214 yards, had 3 touchdowns, but also had 2 interceptions. Isaiah Crowell, 19 carries, 121 yards, no touchdowns. Josh Gordon, 3 receptions, 69 yards and a touchdown. Corey Coleman, 5 receptions, 62 yards and a touchdown. And Duke Johnson, 4 receptions, 41 yards and a touchdown. But once again, the Packers beat the Browns 27-21. I don't think Cleveland's going to win another game after, not even another game. They're not going to win a game this season, I don't think. I mean, this team, even when they play good, they lose, so it doesn't really matter. I'm actually going to talk about them in the third segment, pretty much look ahead to their schedule and see if we can find a way for them to win. So, as for this next game, you had the San Francisco 49ers heading into Houston. I got this one right. The 49ers won this one 26-16. Jimmy Garoppolo had a better game than last week, 334 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Carlos Hyde, 14 carries, 78 yards and a touchdown. Then you had Marquise Goodwin, 6 receptions, 106 yards, and Garrett Selleck, 2 receptions for 67 yards and a touchdown. As for Houston, you had Tom Savage. You went 6-12, 63 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Came out of the game, had that little mini seizure thing. Not sure exactly if it was a seizure, like I said, but either way, he came back and then left the game again. TJ Yates had 14 completions out of 26 attempts when he came in, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. TJ Yates, is he going to be the quarterback going forward for the Houston Texans? Who knows? Then you had Lamar Miller, 17 carries for 53 yards. TJ Yates also on the rushing. I didn't even see this. He had 3 carries for 31 yards. This guy's got legs. Then you had DeAndre Hopkins with another big game, 11 receptions, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Will Fuller continues to be lost without Deshaun Watson, 3 receptions for 26 yards. As for Oakland, the most disappointing team of the season, I picked them against the Chiefs. What do? They get blown out. They pretty much didn't even show up. This was garbage from the Raiders. I don't even know. I don't get it from the Raiders. I mean, they're way better. They got a lot of. I'm not saying they're way better than the Chiefs, but they're way better than what their record shows, I guess you could say. I mean, they got a lot of talent, but they've been just it's like the old Oakland Raiders, Pretty much. I mean, with the old Oakland Raiders, you pretty much expected disappointment. I'm talking about the years after they went to the Super Bowl and pretty much the years before, the last 2, I guess. So you pretty much expected them to be bad, but I mean, these Raiders they're just bad, But like I said, the Chiefs won 26-15. Derek Carr, 24 of 41 throwing the ball, 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Marshawn Lynch, 7 carries, 61 yards, and a touchdown. Really couldn't get going because the team was losing from the get-go. So really had no chance in this one. Jared Cook, 5 receptions, 75 yards, 1 touchdown. Of course, the week I drop him, he comes out and does this. Why not, right? Then you had Michael Crabtree, 7 catches for 60 yards. As for the Chiefs, Alex Smith, 268 yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Guy came back down to earth after throwing for 399 yards and 4 touchdowns last week. I mean, he probably didn't even think he could do that. Kareem Hunt finally got the ball more than 10 times, 25 carries, 116 yards and a touchdown. But I mean, it was against that terrible Oakland defense. So I mean, we'll see how he does next week against the Chargers. I think it is that they're playing. So Charkandrick West had 3 carries, 25 yards and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill, 4 receptions, 75 yards, and Travis Kelce, 7 receptions for 74 yards. As for the Detroit Lions, they won against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They won that one 24-21. Matt Stafford played in this one, 381 yards, completed 36 out of his 44 pass attempts, had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Theo Riddick, 10 carries, 29 yards, 2 touchdowns. Eric Ebron had 10 receptions for 94 yards, no touchdowns. Golden Tate, good game from him, 8 receptions, 85 yards, and a touchdown. As for the Bucs, you had Jameis Winston, 285 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Peyton Barber, 12 carries, 58 yards. Doug Martin, 10 carries, 26 yards, 1 touchdown. O.J. Howard, 4 receptions, 54 yards, and a touchdown. And Mike Evans, guy's been a disappointment all year. 2 receptions, 25 yards. And Deshaun Jackson had 4 receptions for 41 yards. As for the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants, Dallas won that one 30-10. For some reason, I thought Eli Manning coming back to start would give the Giants a big momentum boost, but turns out they're just an overall terrible team. Dak Prescott, 20 of 30 throwing the ball, 332 yards, 3 touchdowns. Still think he's a poor man's Alex Smith. I don't care what he did in this game. It was against the Giants. They're terrible. Alfred Morris, 19 carries, 62 yards. Rod Smith, 6 carries, 47 yards, 1 touchdown. Also had 5 receptions for 113 yards and a touchdown. And Dez Bryant, 3 receptions, 73 yards, and a touchdown. As for the New York Giants, Eli Manning, 228 yards, 1 touchdown. He's Eli Manning, so he's got to come out and throw a couple of picks, and that's exactly what he did. He had 2 interceptions. Wayne Gallman, 12 carries, 59 yards. Orleans Darkwa, 10 carries, 29 yards. Evan Ingram, 4 receptions for 54 yards. And Wayne Gallman also had 7 receptions for 40 yards. As for the Tennessee Titans and Arizona Cardinals, Tennessee is a bad team. How in the world are they 8-5? They lost to the Cardinals 12-7. Marcus Mariota having a terrible year so far this season. Not even so far. It's pretty much, I'm sure he's going to end the regular season terrible too. I mean, the guy only had 159 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks. DeMarco Murray had 11 carries for 34 yards. Derrick Henry, 8 carries, 20 yards, 1 touchdown. Eric Decker, 3 receptions, 56 yards. Delaney Walker had 5 receptions for 42 yards. As for the Cardinals, Blaine Gabbert, 178 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. So I guess that's a decent Blaine Gabbert game right there since he didn't throw any picks. And you had Kerwin Williams, who started the game for Adrian Peterson since Peterson didn't play in this one. He had 20 carries, 73 yards. Larry Fitzgerald, 5 receptions, 44 yards. And Jermaine Gresham had 2 receptions for 27 yards. How did this team... that's brutal. I mean, imagine being an Arizona Cardinals or a Tennessee Titans fan, or imagine being a fan in Tennessee of a different NFL team, or a fan in Arizona of a different NFL team, and you're forced to watch this because you don't got the Sunday ticket. I mean, imagine that. I'd go and if I had to watch this game, or had my choice of going to ESPN and watching bowling that they have on at 10 o'clock, I'd go and watch bowling instead of this. Man, that was a brutal game. I'm sure I'd find more joy in watching bowling than I would that game. But as for that next game, you had the New York Jets heading into Denver. Denver won that one 23-0. Man, I got a lot of these picks wrong. Josh McCown, 6 of 12, 46 yards, no touchdowns, one interception, left the game, and is going to be out for the rest of the season with a broken hand. Got that update from Bleacher Report. You heard it here, probably third, fourth, I don't know. I'm just breaking that news right here as I can. Then you had Bryce Petty, who came in, 2 completions out of 9 attempts, 14 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. So obviously the Jets needed a quarterback next year. You had Bilal Powell, 13 carries, 35 yards. Matt Forte, 6 carries, 13 yards. Robbie Anderson, only 3 receptions for 27 yards. And Matt Forte, 2 receptions for 21 yards. As for the Denver Broncos, look who didn't throw an interception. Trevor Siemian, 200 yards, 1 touchdown. Like I said, no interceptions. C.J. Anderson, 22 carries, 48 yards. Devontae Booker, 9 carries, 22 yards. Then you had Demaryius Thomas with 8 receptions for 93 yards. And Cody Latimer had 2 receptions for 37 yards. As for the Washington Redskins, they headed into L.A. This is one of the few picks I got right. The Chargers won this one, 30-13. Kirk Cousins, 151 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Maje Perine, 17 carries, 45 yards. Josh Dotson, 3 receptions, 34 yards. Jamison Crowder, same stat line. Actually, that's kind of weird. He had 3 receptions for 34 yards also. Let's see. As far as the Chargers go, you had Phillip Rivers, 319 yards, 2 touchdowns. Melvin Gordon, 22 carries, 78 yards, 1 touchdown. And Tyrell Williams, 4 receptions for 132 yards and a touchdown. And let me see, Keenan Allen, 6 receptions, 111 yards. Hunter Henry, 4 catches, 50 yards and a touchdown. As for the Seattle Seahawks, they went into Jacksonville, and you know what? Jacksonville pulled this one out. Jacksonville won 30-24. For Seattle, though, Russell Wilson had 271 yards, 3 touchdowns. Could not get past that Jacksonville secondary, though, as he threw 3 interceptions. Mike Davis was the choice running back for Seattle this week. He had 15 carries for 66 yards. Russell Wilson added to that. He had 5 carries for 50 yards. Tyler Lockett, 4 receptions, 90 yards. Lockett also had a touchdown, too. Doug Baldwin, 3 receptions, 78 yards and a touchdown. And Paul Richardson, you know how he does. He only has maybe about 3 or 2 catches a game, but he's going to have around 80 yards because he's just a big play player. 3 receptions, 72 yards and a touchdown. As for the Jacksonville Jaguars, look who's playing like a good quarterback. Blake Bortles, 18 of 27, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and look at this, no interceptions. Leonard Fournette, 24 carries, 101 yards, 1 touchdown. D.D. Westbrook had 5 receptions for 81 yards, 1 touchdown, and Marquise Lee had 5 receptions for 65 yards. Philadelphia, poor Philly. They went into L.A., faced off with the Rams. Philly pulled this one out, 43-35. I said if they wanted to be taken seriously, they had to win this game, and they did. But you know what? Carson Wentz blew out his knee, so there goes their season right there. Wentz had 23 completions out of 41 attempts, 291 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Nick Foles comes in, 6 of 10, 42 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Jay Ajayi, 15 carries, 78 yards. Corey Clement, 6 carries, 24 yards. And let's see these Philly receivers. Troy Smith, 6 receptions, 100 yards. And Burton, I think the tight end from Philly, had 5 receptions, 71 yards, and 2 touchdowns. As for the Rams, Jared Goff, 16 of 26, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Todd Gurley, 13 carries, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also had 3 receptions for 39 yards. And Cooper Kupp had 5 receptions for 118 yards and a touchdown. Sammy Watkins also contributed a touchdown with his 3 receptions and 21 yards. But we'll talk more about the Eagles in that third segment, but that's actually going to wrap it up for this segment. Next up, we'll talk about the Sunday night football game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. If you missed that last segment or need a quick reminder, we basically just recapped every single game that was played on Sunday, except for the Sunday night game, because we're about to do that right now. But yeah, we pretty much talked about the games that were played on, like the early games and afternoon games, and pretty much gave the scores, stats, and talked a little about each of them. So for this one, actually, this segment, we're going to be talking about some NFC North football between the Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers. And for this game, I mean, I was expecting, like I talked about it on Friday's podcast, and I was expecting it to be like a hard-hitting, just that good old AFC North football, kind of like how that Steelers-Bengals game was last week, except, I guess, without the injuries, because you never want to see injuries, obviously. But I thought it'd be that, but instead we got like a Patriots-Colts game when Tom Brady used to face off with Peyton Manning. We pretty much got a shootout. And this is like the least thing the farthest thing I expected, because I mean it was either going to be a hard hitting, close, pretty much low scoring game, I felt, or the Steelers were just going to blow them out. And you know what? I don't know what's gotten into them or Joe Flacco, but somehow this Ravens team, this offense at least, has put up 44 points last week and 38 points this week. I mean, no one saw this coming. I mean, they were pretty much garbage. That offense was pretty much terrible at it for this entire year, and then all of a sudden this team's out here dropping 44 points and 38 points in back-to-back weeks. So obviously they're doing something right. But yeah, the Steelers won this one 39-38. Pretty much Chris Boswell did what he did, kicked a bunch of field goals, and Antonio Brown did what he did. Made himself look even more like an MVP candidate. Let me get into the stats for the Ravens first before I even get into the Steelers. You had Joe Flacco, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Alex Collins, 18 carries, 120 yards, 1 touchdown. Buck Allen had 6 carries, 25 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mike Wallace, 3 receptions, 72 yards. Moore had 3 receptions for 48 yards and a touchdown. And let's see, Jeremy Maclin had 3 receptions for 27 yards. As for the Steelers, you had Ben Roethlisberger out here pretty much throwing the ball till his arm falls off. Had 44 completions out of 66 attempts. He had 506 yards, 2 touchdowns. Le'Veon Bell, 13 carries, 48 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also had 9 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown through the air. Antonio Brown, 11 receptions, 213 yards. This guy is going to be a top 5 MVP candidate. You know what? He might even... If he keeps up how he's been playing, Antonio Brown should win the MVP. I'm going to say it right there. We've never had a wide receiver win the MVP. If Antonio Brown keeps this up, give him the MVP. But let's see, Jesse James had 10 receptions for 97 yards, and that's pretty much all that was notable about the Steelers' offense right there. Let's get into the scoring summary real quick, and then we'll talk a little bit about each team. So then you had first quarter, Le'Veon Bell, 20-yard touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger, makes it 7-0 Pittsburgh. Second quarter comes, Le'Veon Bell, 1-yard touchdown run, which makes it 14-0 Pittsburgh. Then you got Chris Moore, 30-yard touchdown pass from Joe Flacco, 14-7 Pittsburgh. Chris Boswell kicks a field goal, makes it 17-7. Alex Collins has an 18-yard touchdown run. That makes it 14-7. And then Chris Boswell, right before the half ends, kicks another field goal, which makes it 20-14. Third quarter comes, and that third quarter was all Baltimore right there. You had Justin Tucker kick a 47-yard field goal, which made it 20-17. Buck Allen, 1-yard touchdown run, makes it 24-20 Baltimore. And then Patrick Ricard catches a 6-yard touchdown pass from Joe Flacco, which makes it 31-20. And then the Steelers came alive in the fourth. Chris Boswell kicks a 24-yard field goal, which makes it 31-23 Baltimore still. Roosevelt Nix, 1-yard touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger, makes it 31-29 Pittsburgh because they didn't get the 2-point conversion. Buck Allen, 9-yard touchdown run, which makes it 38-29 Baltimore. Then you got Le'Veon Bell, 11-yard touchdown run, which makes it 38-36. And then Chris Boswell, 42 seconds left, kicks a 46-yard field goal, which makes it 39-38 Pittsburgh. And that's all she wrote right there. That was the game. And right now, Pittsburgh's now 11-2. Baltimore's 7-6. Pittsburgh's now is the number 1 team in the AFC as far as seeding goes. Let's see if Baltimore still kept their wild card spot. Let me go double check it right there. I know the Bills won, so Bills might have jumped them for that playoff spot. Man, that 6th spot is looking ugly. Yep, Baltimore right now is 7th, the 7th team in the AFC, and right now Buffalo's number 6. Obviously, they're 7-6. You know what? Tennessee might fall out of the playoffs because they're just a terrible team. I really don't understand Tennessee, but I mean, Baltimore obviously still has a chance at making the playoffs. Them and Buffalo got the same record along with the Chargers, but the Chargers are going to win their division. Kansas City's going to choke that one away. Don't let them beat the Raiders for you. I mean, just the Raiders and Chiefs game basically just tells us that, you know what, the Raiders are just a even worse team than the Chiefs. But yeah, Chargers are taking there. So Baltimore, I mean, who do they got coming up next? They got the Browns, the Colts, and the Bengals. So Baltimore's probably going to win out. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. and they should win out. So I mean, that's going to be 10-6 right there. And let's see, Buffalo. Who do they got coming up? They got the Dolphins, Patriots, and Dolphins again. So I got Dolphins twice, and then the Patriots. And Buffalo's going to drop one of those games to Miami, and they'll definitely drop that game to New England. So Buffalo's going to finish 8-8, and Oakland's done. I gave up on them. I've been trying to pretty much stay on that hype train, but they're done. They ain't got no shot. Let's see who they got coming up. They got the Cowboys, Eagles, Chargers. So yeah, they're done. They might not even beat the Cowboys. They're not beating the Chargers. And let's see, Miami's really not someone you want to talk about right now since they're 5-7. So yeah, Baltimore, it's looking pretty good for them still. I mean, like I said, I expect them to win out, so they'll probably finish 10-6 and make the playoffs, and they'll win their wild card game for sure. I mean, because they're probably gonna, unless they play the Chargers. I think if the Chargers play the Ravens, then the Chargers are gonna pull that one out. But if Jacksonville had to play, if Baltimore were to finish in that 6th spot, then they'd have to play Jacksonville. And I think Baltimore could beat Jacksonville still. I don't think Jacksonville's ready, to win a couple of playoff games, but we'll see how it all ends up. As for Pittsburgh, I mean, here they are out here dropping 39 points and pretty much doing whatever they can to win. It's not looking pretty, but they're still getting the wins. I mean, let's see. Yeah, their last 3 games have been close. I mean, 3 weeks ago they played the Packers. That was 31-28. Last week on Monday they played the Steelers, made it 23-20. Steelers played the Bengals, and then, like I said, this game last night, they won 39-38, so it's been close. I mean, now you got the Patriots coming into town next week, and the Patriots got Miami on Monday night tonight in Miami, so we'll see. We'll talk more about that game in the 4th segment, but that's going to be pretty much the game that decides who the best team in the AFC is right there, and who's going to end up with the number 1 seed in the AFC when playoffs come. Right now, the Steelers, like I said, their offense is really probably the best in the league right now besides the Rams, I guess you could say. But if I had to pick between if I had to have one team's offense, I'd choose the Steelers because when you got Antonio Brown and you got Le'Veon Bell, I mean, that's pretty much the best of both worlds right there. And, but let's see. It's pretty much, I mean, there's not much you could say about Pittsburgh right now. Like, they're the best team in the AFC, according to me. And last night, like I said, it looked ugly, but they played well. And going forward, I mean, it's pretty much just a Patriots game because then you got the Texans and Browns coming up after that. But, I mean, obviously the Steelers are going to win that game. So, I mean, it's pretty much just waiting for playoffs to come now for these two teams. I mean, like I said, Baltimore's probably going to make the playoffs. The Steelers are going to make the playoffs, obviously. They're going to win their division. I think they should have already clinched it. Yeah, they clinched it at least. So, yeah, it's pretty much there's not much you can say about either team right now. Like as far as Pittsburgh goes, you pretty much hope going into the playoffs that no one else gets hurt and you're all healthy because they're gonna have a first round bye. And then let's see, who would they play in the divisional playoff round? Let's see right here. They think they'd have to play. I'm expecting them to beat New England next week, so I'm expecting them to finish as the 1st seed. So they'd have to play the Ravens in the divisional round, unless I'm pretty sure it'd be the Ravens. I'm not sure how this whole wild card or this whole seeding thing works because I know if Pittsburgh's the number 1 seed and the Ravens win, then they play the Ravens. But I know if Jacksonville were to win, they'd be the 3 seed. So I think Jacksonville would play New England, and I don't know. I don't know how it goes. It's all confusing. But either way, Pittsburgh should make it to the AFC Championship, and they'll probably meet New England in there unless somehow the Chargers have a way to sneak into the AFC Championship. And I know it really should be just the Patriots and Steelers that we're talking about for the AFC Championship, but you know what? Those Chargers are out here looking good, all right? We'll actually talk a little bit about them next up in this next segment, but yeah, like I said, don't sleep on the Chargers right now. They're probably the 3rd hottest team in the AFC right now, and one of the hottest teams in the league. Phillip Rivers is out here playing like it's like he's got LT back there too. Let's see, Melvin Gordon, yeah, he's pretty much... I'm not going to make that comparison. No, I'm not crazy. But, yeah, right now the Chargers are looking good. So it's probably going to be between those 3 teams. 2 out of those 3 teams are going to make the AFC Championship. Right now I still think it's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers and New England Patriots. But we'll see how it all goes. But, yeah, that's pretty much actually going to wrap it up for this segment. Or actually, no, that's not. Let's say a couple more things about let's talk a little bit more about Antonio Brown and this whole MVP race type of thing. All right, so, yeah, Antonio Brown, let me see if I can pull up his stats from his last few games. I'm going to go pull up my fantasy app real quick. But, Antonio Brown yesterday, 11 catches, 213 yards. And the MVP race right now is between him, Tom Brady, and Russell Wilson. But it's probably going to end up being Tom Brady because Russell Wilson lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars yesterday. And unless he wins out and goes crazy, I don't think he's going to be able to win it. New England's going to win their division. And I think if New England beats Pittsburgh, then it's then it's Tom Brady's MVP to lose. But if Pittsburgh were to beat New England and Antonio Brown has a big game, then you know what? Antonio Brown might just mess around and win MVP. So yeah, against Baltimore, like I said, 11 catches, 213 yards, no touchdowns though. Against Cincinnati, 8 catches, 101 yards, 1 touchdown. Green Bay against them, 10 catches, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. Against Tennessee, 144 yards, 3 touchdowns. Indianapolis and Detroit, those were bad games for him. He only had 3 catches for 47 yards against Indianapolis. Against Detroit, only 5 catches for 70 yards. But against Cincinnati, he had 4 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown. Against Kansas City, 8 catches, 155 yards and a touchdown. Against Jacksonville, 10 catches for 157 yards. His first game against Baltimore was a poor one, 4 catches for 34 yards. Against Chicago, 10 catches, 110 yards and a touchdown. Against Minnesota, only 5 catches for 62 yards. And against Cleveland, he had 11 catches for 82 yards. So the guy's been pretty much blowing up the stat sheet every week except for 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, except for 4 games out of the 14 that he's played, or 13 that he's played. He's pretty much did whatever he wanted against opposing defense. And it's not like these defenses are just leaving him one-on-one. They're trying to double him, but they simply can't cover him. So, I mean, if the Steelers were to beat the Patriots and Antonio Brown has another big game, give Antonio Brown the MVP, I say. But we'll see how it all ends up. But if the guy wins MVP, he's one of the greatest of all time. I already think that he's one of the greatest receivers of all time. He's going to end up being the best, I think. I know Randy Moss is the best wide receiver of all time right now. And people like to say Jerry Rice, but let's be real here. The guy had stick him on his gloves constantly. I mean, he was a good receiver, a great receiver, one of the best of all time still. But, I mean, he wasn't. Randy Moss is better. I'm going to say that right now. I know I'm a young kid, so I don't really, you don't know much about Jerry Rice. Who cares? Randy Moss is better than him. But either way, going back to it, I mean, Antonio Brown's going to go down as one of the best of all time as far as the wide receiver position goes, and he might even end up being the best when it's all said and done. But that's going to actually wrap it up for this segment. Next up, we're going to talk about Carson Wentz. We'll talk about Tom Savage. We'll talk about the Chargers and pretty much anything else that comes to my mind. And then for that last segment, we'll talk about the Monday night football game going on between the Miami Dolphins and New England Patriots. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. In that last segment, we talked about the Sunday night game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens. Talked a little bit about Antonio Brown as an MVP candidate. I think if Pittsburgh beats the Patriots next week and Antonio Brown has another big game and continues to have big games for the rest of the season, he should win the MVP. But we'll see how it is. I mean, you've never had a wide receiver win MVP, but this might be the year where it happens. And I actually think it will happen. I mean, I think Pittsburgh's going to beat the Patriots next week. And like I said, if Antonio Brown has another big game like he's been, I mean, you got Carson Wentz, who was in the MVP race, but he blew out his knee, and we'll talk about that in a few moments. And then you got Russell Wilson, who was in the sorry, I got the hiccups right now, but you got Russell Wilson, who was in the MVP race. He just lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and really the Seahawks really. The only shot they got to make in the playoffs, I feel, is just through the wild card, but they do get the Rams next week. So, I mean, if they win that one, then, I mean, that pretty much completely changes everything. And the only other guy that really has a true shot at winning the MVP is obviously Tom Brady. So I think it's going to come down to Tom Brady and Antonio Brown. And I think if Antonio Brown at least doesn't finish second, I mean, granted, he does have to come out these last 3 games and pretty much ball out like he's been, but I don't think that's going to be too much of an ask for him. But I do think it's going to come down to between him and Tom Brady. And, I mean, I'd rather see Antonio Brown win it because, I mean, like I said, we just never seen a wide receiver do it. But either way, we'll figure out how this all ends up when the season ends, obviously. But let's talk about those Philadelphia Eagles. All right, so going into this game, last week's podcast, I was talking about, you know what, give the Eagles a chance. Okay, I understand that they haven't played too many tough teams this season. I understand that they went into Seattle and lost 24-10, and people were starting to pretty much write them off and saying, oh yeah, Philly's not a good team, like a real good team or anything like that. They pretty much had a cupcake schedule all year, and I was saying that you know what, if they beat the Rams, then you know what, all that goes pretty much goes to bed. And Philly is a good team if they beat the Rams. And sure enough, they beat the Rams, but at what cost? Carson Wentz tore his ACL and is now out for the rest of the season. And man, do I feel bad for Eagles fans. So like my uncle, pretty much, yeah, my family, they're Eagles fans. My uncle, my aunt, and my cousins are all Eagles fans, right? And I was talking to my uncle. I've been talking to him a little bit about the Eagles season so far. And he was telling, I was like, oh, it's Eagles Super Bowl bound, just messing around, laughing and stuff like that. He'd tell me, oh, I'm only riding the wave till it crashes and burns or something like that. And I was like, you know, that's not really too much optimism right there. But sure enough, the guy was right. Okay, the Eagles are out here having a great season, probably one of their better seasons in recent memory, at least. I mean, when's the last time the Eagles started off? Was it 11-2 now? Yeah, when's the last time the Eagles started off 11-2? So yeah, they're looking good, and it's looking like, oh yeah, the Eagles are going to go to the NFC Championship and probably make the Super Bowl because they're looking like the best team in the league right now. And sure enough, all that hope just pretty much crashed and burned after pretty much one injury to Carson Wentz. Now they pretty much have no chance. Their season's over, and people are saying like, oh yeah, Philly season isn't over. They're still making the playoffs and all that, but making the playoffs with this team isn't good enough. This is a team with Carson Wentz that should have ended up in the NFC Championship and probably the Super Bowl, at least. That's what I was expecting from them, given how they've played so far this season. And with Nick Foles out there, I mean, yeah, you're going to make the playoffs, and maybe you can pull out a win in the divisional round, maybe. I mean, I'm not even sure if this team is going to make the finish as a top 2 seed. Let me see right here their schedule going forward. Let's see. This might let's see. So they got the Giants up next. Philly should be able to win that one with Nick Foles. Then you got the Raiders, where the Raiders are a bad team right now. They're pretty much a disappointing team. And, I mean, the Eagles are going to be playing that one at home. That's on Christmas, actually, on Monday night. Yeah, so that one's going to be a home game for the Eagles. So, I mean, they might be able to pull that one out, but I'm not too sure about it now that Carson Wentz is out. And then they got Dallas in Week 17, and Ezekiel Elliott's going to be playing in that game for Dallas. So, I mean, I don't think Philly's going to be able to win that one with Nick Foles back there. So, I mean, they got a chance at going 2-1 these next 3 games, or 1-2. And if they were to go 1-2, then they'd finish off, 12-4. Minnesota, I mean, they still have a chance. I guess I'm pretty, like, it's, unless the rest of these teams went out like the Rams and the Saints or Minnesota, it's looking like the Eagles are still going to have that top 2 spot. So, let's see. They'd have to play a team like the Rams, the Saints, the Panthers, Atlanta, or Seattle. It's going to be one of those teams that they're playing, obviously. I think it'd probably end up being the Seahawks or the Saints, I think. Yeah, it's going to be in the Seahawks or the Saints that Philly plays. And playing those 2 teams in the divisional round without your best quarterback, they have no chance whatsoever. I mean, I'm sorry, but Nick Foles is not the guy who's going to take you to the NFC Championship or to the Super Bowl. I'll tell you that right now. I've seen some Philly fans on Twitter being a little bit optimistic about their chances with Nick Foles, talking about, I've seen one talking about if Case Keenum can do it, then Nick Foles can do it, and it was comparing Case Keenum's stats to Nick Foles, and I'm just like, really? Is that really what we're doing? I mean, I understand the optimism and the hope, but really? Are we really doing that, Philly? Are we really going to compare Nick Foles to Case Keenum? All right, Nick Foles was good, 5 years ago? 6 years ago? Then he got that big contract and turned into a bad quarterback? Like, do we think that Nick Foles is going to come out and be that good quarterback that he once was 5 years ago? I mean, really? Is that really what we're doing? Because you're going to get hurt a whole bunch more if you're out here having hope for Nick Foles. I mean, if I'm a Philly fan, then I'm just going in for the rest of the season. You know what? Hopefully we win these games. I mean, we're still going to end up in the playoffs. And hopefully we just compete because, like I said, Nick Foles has not beaten the Saints or the Seahawks. I actually think that the Saints are now that Philly Philly lost their quarterback in Carson Wentz for the year. I think that the Saints are going to be the team that comes out of the NFC and makes it to the Super Bowl. Either them or the Packers. And I say Packers because you know what? They're 7-6, and you know who's coming back this week, or at least should be? Aaron Rodgers. And you know who's going to come out and win a bunch of games and take his team to the playoffs? Aaron Rodgers. And actually, yeah, that's all I got to say about Philly. But let's talk about the other teams. I mean, let's talk about the Packers. You got to. Brett Hundley, he did the job that he needed to do. He beat the Browns, and now they're 7-6, and I can't wait for Aaron Rodgers to come back and pretty much light up the league. The guy's going to take the Packers to the playoffs, and then might even take him to the NFC Championship. I think it's going to, if I had to make a call right now, and let's say that the playoffs, the playoff seeding is going to go, let's go Minnesota. Or let's go the Eagles at number 1. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt with Nick Foles. Okay, let's just say Eagles at number 1. Then you got the Vikings at number 2. The Rams at number 3. Saints at number 4. Then you got a team like Seattle at 5. And then the Packers at 6. Ooh, do I want to go Carolina or Seattle? I'm going to go Carolina instead of Seattle. I'm just going to throw that out, do that. Yeah, so you got Carolina at 5 and then the Green Bay Packers at 6. You'll be having, I think you'd be having the Saints either play the Eagles or the Vikings, obviously in the divisional round. You got the Packers playing one of those two teams. I think the Packers would be playing the Eagles. So yeah, Aaron Rodgers beats the Eagles in the divisional round. The Saints beat the Vikings in the divisional round. Then boom, you got Drew Brees versus Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship. And holy cow, you know what? If Aaron Rodgers comes back and he comes back playing well, Packers might win the Super Bowl. I'm not even trying to over-exaggerate or try to hype them up. Packers with Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs are dangerous. Packers with Devontae Adams playing wide receiver, probably the best year he's ever had, are dangerous. Okay, then you got Jamal Williams. Aaron Rodgers will finally have a good running back there. And then the defense isn't too good, but I mean, it's not as bad as it's been the last few years. So, I mean, the Packers got a legit shot if they make the playoffs of going to the Super Bowl. But like I said, I'm going to pick the Saints and the Packers as the two teams that are playing in the NFC Championship. And if that happens, I mean, I'd ball for a Steelers-Packers Super Bowl, a Steelers-Saints Super Bowl, or a Patriots-Packers Super Bowl. I think I want a Patriots and Packers Super Bowl. Now, I just imagine Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. That'd be like the ultimate passing of the torch right there. I mean, that'd be so good for the NFL right there, just based off of ratings. I need Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers in the Super Bowl. I need it. I'm going to call Goodell, see if he could pull some strings to make it happen. Because, I mean, if we get Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers in the Super Bowl, that'd be like the greatest thing of all time, I feel. Pretty much the quarterback who is regarded as the best of all time versus the quarterback who is the best in the NFL at this moment when he plays. And then if I had to pick between either of those two teams in the Super Bowl, I'm going Aaron Rodgers all the way. It's just how sports is, dude. I mean, sports obviously isn't fake or anything like that, and it's not fixed, at least for the most part. I mean, I know the 2002 Kings would like to have a word with the Los Angeles Lakers because, I mean, you can't tell me any different. I'm not even a Kings fan, but that 2002 series between Western Conference Final Series between the Kings and the Lakers was fixed. And if you're a Lakers fan and you try to deny that, you're just in complete denial. Like, thing was fixed without a doubt. The Kings should have won that series and won the finals that year, but you know, Tim Donaghy and such. I don't even think Tim Donaghy was actually a ref for that series. It was more he knew about it, though. But yeah, that series is fixed. But getting back to the topic, yeah, Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady would pretty much be the best thing for the NFL right now, just given everything that's happened so far this season. I mean, that'd probably be the most watched Super Bowl of all time, I feel. But yeah, I just hopefully we get Rodgers versus the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I mean, we already got Rodgers versus the Steelers. Steelers won that one. I don't need to see that again. I think if the Steelers were to play the Packers again, the Steelers won that one. But I think if the Packers play the Patriots, then you know what, the Packers would pull that one out. But I mean, the Packers just got to get to the playoffs first, and it's going to be a little bit difficult to do. They got to win out, obviously, in order to make it. So hopefully it all works out. I know Seattle's got the Rams and then the Cowboys with Ezekiel Elliott playing the next 2 weeks. And then they got the Cardinals. So, come on, LA. Come on, Dallas. Or do your job. Beat these Seahawks. And I'm sure Atlanta's going to find a way to choke their way out of the playoff hunt. So, yeah, we just need the Packers to win out. And we're one step closer to that dream of Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers. But let's talk a little bit about Tom Savage and the Texans, all right? So, Tom Savage gets hit yesterday in the game. And I think his head hit the ground, and that's what caused it. But you see him his body going to shock, it looked like, and it looked like he was almost having a seizure. Again, I don't know if he was having a seizure for sure, but that's what everyone else has been saying. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, the guy was having a seizure, but whatever it was, it looked like his body went into shock. So then he leaves the game, And then after a few plays, the guy comes back out and comes back in the game. And it's like, Houston, what are you doing? Why are you bringing this guy back out there? The guy pretty much couldn't move his body for a second, or his body was pretty much in shock, moving for himself. So, I mean, it made no sense to throw the guy out there. And then Bill O'Brien, after the game, he said, oh, I'm just a coach or whatever. And I kind of get that because, I mean, he's not the guy who does the concussion protocol test or anything like that. It's obviously the team trainers and doctors. And obviously they sent him out there, so Bill O'Brien's not paying attention to that. So he's thinking that, you know what, oh yeah, Tom Savage can be out there. But then later on, he did say that because he saw the video after, I guess, and he said if he would have saw it, then yeah, he wouldn't have let Tom Savage back out there. So I'm not really putting the fault on Bill O'Brien in this one. It's not his fault. This one belongs on the team trainers' shoulders and the team doctors, or whatever you call them. I know they're trainers, but I'm sure the team's got doctors too, right? But yeah, I'm putting the blame on them. The guy should have never went out there, okay? It's dangerous for him to go out there. I don't even think he finished the game or anything like that, so it's a good thing he came back out and left the game. But nonetheless, he shouldn't have even been out there. I mean, it's pointless. As a doctor, I mean, you see the guy out there pretty much going into shock. Why are you going to throw him? Why, even if he does pass the test, why are you going to throw him out there? It makes no sense to me. But they did that, so now the NFL is probably going to, yeah, the NFL is, without a doubt, not even probably, they are going to investigate the Texans and see pretty much what they did wrong. I'm sure the Texans are going to get fined, so we'll see how it all ends up. But that's all I got to say about that right there. Quick little note on that. But that's actually going to wrap it up for this segment. Next up, we're going to talk some Monday Night Football. We got the New England Patriots heading into Miami, facing off with the Dolphins. As a Dolphins fan, I'm not looking forward to this one, but we got to talk about this one either way. I'll make my pick, talk about each team, and we'll pretty much wrap up the show from there. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. If you missed that last segment or need a quick reminder, we pretty much talked about the Eagles and where they go from here now that Carson Wentz is out. And actually, before I started this segment, I had a quick little conversation with Tate before I started it, like I said, and I was talking to him, like, are the Eagles done? What do you think? And he says that they're not done, and they actually still have a chance, I mean, to win a game in the divisional round and make it to the NFC Championship, because he was telling me how, I mean, with the second-year quarterback in Carson Wentz, the playbook still isn't opened up completely, and it's pretty much limited for him to succeed. But with Nick Foles out there, guy's been in the league for a while, so he can handle an opened-up playbook, but and he can actually probably, he's not better than Carson Wentz, he wasn't saying that, but he could probably have a better chance at winning a game now that teams have more to prepare for the Eagles now with an opened up playbook and all that. But I don't really agree with him still. I don't really believe in Nick. I like the whole Nick Foles. Like, I really just don't believe in Nick Foles, right? Philly around him, Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, Alshon Jeffrey. And then they got that good defense. I mean, they got a good team surrounding Nick Foles. So, I mean, there's a chance that they're able to pull out a game, but the whole thing with me in Philly is that they're going to have to play the Packers. They're going to have to play the Seahawks. There's a chance that they play the Rams in the divisional round, or you know what? They might not. They might even play the Cowboys. Cowboys, if they beat the who do the Cowboys play next week? Let's see. Cowboys play. Oh yeah, they play the Raiders this week on Sunday night, and then they got the Seahawks next week. But that'll be against Ezekiel Elliott. I think the Cowboys can beat the Raiders. The Raiders are done. They're done forever. Not forever, but they're done for this season at least. The Raiders really messed up bringing Derek Carr back so fast after that fractured back injury. I feel like they handled that so poorly. I mean, I get the whole you're going to be in Oakland for 2 more years. I mean, next year I think is their last year in Oakland, but I get the whole you got to win something in Oakland, but don't ruin the franchise's future or anything like that by rushing a guy back after 1 week from a fractured back. I mean, yeah, I understand like the whole, like I said, just the whole you got to win something for Oakland, but I mean, eventually you just got to think to the future. I mean, this is the Las Vegas Raiders. As much as it stinks to say, I mean, the Raiders should have never left Oakland, and they shouldn't, but they're going to. So I mean, in 2 years, this is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. So start preparing for the Las Vegas Raiders future instead of the Oakland Raiders future, because they have no future. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all ends up for Philly. I mean, Tate almost did have me change my mind, but I kept thinking it back. It's Nick Foles. It's Nick Foles. It's Nick Foles. It's Nick Foles. So we'll see how it all ends up. It's going to be fun, but I'm also, yeah, in that last segment, I really need the Packers in the playoffs. That's one team I need in the playoffs, all right? Packers make the playoffs, they're a dangerous team. They're a Super Bowl contending team if they make the playoffs, so we'll see if they're able to do it. And we also talked about Tom Savage and how that whole thing was handled poorly, but for this segment, we're going to talk some Monday Night Football. We got the New England Patriots without Rob Gronkowski heading into Miami, facing off with the Miami Dolphins, and Patriots are favored by 11 in this one. Last time they did cover the spread, I think, yeah, they won 35-17. Patriots are favored by 16. Like I said, they covered. So this game's going to be different, I think. I think the Patriots are still going to come out with the win, but it's going to be a whole lot closer than we all think. Miami at home is just pretty much like, it's not like it's a win-loss type of differential or anything like that when they're playing at home rather on the road, but when they're at home, they play a whole lot better than they do on the road. On the road, yeah, they'll get blown out any day of the week, but when they're at home, they're going to make the game competitive, okay? So yeah, like the Patriots, they don't have Rob Gronkowski, and Miami's biggest problem over the last 15 years since I've been watching them, their biggest problem was that they couldn't really handle tight ends. It doesn't matter if you were a good tight end or a bad tight end. Simply, if you played the Miami Dolphins and you played the tight end position, you were going to have a great game, okay? So yeah, they're not going to have Rob Gronkowski, the Patriots. Obviously, Martellus Bennett is on IR, I believe, so Dwayne Allen's going to be the starting tight end in this one. And Dwayne Allen isn't no pushover scrub or anything like that. Dwayne Allen can still play pretty well, and given that he plays on the Patriots, I mean, Bill Belichick is going to do whatever he can to pretty much utilize Dwayne Allen's talent. So, I mean, Miami still has to look out for Dwayne Allen, and then you got Chris Hogan coming back this week after missing 4 games. You got Brandon Cooks you got to worry about. Danny Amendola, really, you don't got to worry too much about him. Actually, you got to worry about, Danny Amendola still, because he plays for the Patriots. You never know who's going to come out and have a good game. It's all about who the Patriots feel like they need to utilize that week. And even, look at Rex Burkhead. I mean, did we all think that guy was going to come out and have a season that he's having now? I mean, I know he's not out here averaging, going to have 1,000-yard rushing season or anything like that, but he's out there. He's a factor when he's out there. You got to worry about him. Then you got Deion Lewis, who's been playing well. So Miami's going to have their hands full, still trying to deal with this Patriots offense, even without Rob Gronkowski. If I'm not more worried. I mean, I think Miami could still do well against these Patriots receivers. It's just the whole Dwayne Allen situation right there, okay? I understand that Dwayne Allen isn't Rob Gronkowski, but literally, Miami has had such trouble over the years dealing with tight ends that Dwayne Allen could literally go for 80 yards, 4 catches, and a touchdown today if he pleases. Because Miami has Kiko Alonso, and he's too slow to cover a tight end. He struggles covering tight ends. I mean, look at Jared Cook when they played Oakland. Jared Cook had caught 4 of Derek Carr's first 4 passing attempts. So yeah, Miami struggles big time to cover the tight ends. Lawrence Timmons looking like he's starting to degress a little bit. And who's their other linebacker? Yeah, Chase Allen, now that Ray Malaluga's out. So I mean, Chase Allen might have the job of covering Dwayne Allen tonight, and it's really I don't want to say that's what the game's going to come down to, because obviously the Patriots have a lot of other factors that are better than Miami, but it's really going to be interesting to see. Another player I'm interested about in this game is Kenyon Drake. Last week he had 120 yards and a touchdown against the Denver Broncos, and I'm pretty intrigued to see how Bill Belichick's going to deal with him this week. Kenyon Drake isn't no pushover. It's not like he just had one good game and that's it. No, he showed flashes last year. I mean, obviously J.J. was back there starting, so Kenyon Drake could only play a few plays a game or anything like that, but he did show flashes of the kind of running back he could be, and so far with J.J. being in Philly now, Kenyon Drake's pretty much taken that lead back role and ran with it and did well. But like I said, last week against Denver, I mean, he played well, and the weeks before that, he's been playing well. He's always good for at least one big run a game, and he's usually, I think he scored 3 touchdowns out of his the last 5 games that J.J. has been gone. I think it's 6 or 5, but either way, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6 touchdowns in those games is still good, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Tonight, I'm up by 15 right now in my fantasy football playoff first round, and the guy I'm playing is Steven Gostowski, and I got Deion Lewis and Kenyon Drake. I mean, one of them I could start right now. I got Deion Lewis starting, but I'm not sure. Kenyon Drake can go for a big game right here. And just like I said, as far as Miami goes, I mean, at home, they play a whole lot better than they usually do. Against the Raiders, they played well at home. Let's see, who have they played at home so far this season? They beat the Jets at home. And I think they beat Denver at home last week. And I can't remember the other two teams. I think it might have been the Titans that they played at home also. So Miami's actually won. How many of their games at home have been wins? Let me double check the schedule right here. But I think Miami's going to be able to cover the spread this time at least. I mean, I know that sounds kind of bad because it's 11 points, but yeah, Miami's still going to cover. It's not going to be a blowout win for the Patriots, I think. It's going to be within 7 points, 10 points, I think. I know 10 points seems like a lot, but if you remember last time they played, Miami lost by 18? Yeah, 18. So we'll see how it is. Actually, it's the spread dropped. It went from 11 to 10.5. Maybe they know something we don't. But yeah, the Dolphins beat the Broncos at home. Then they beat they beat the Jets at home. They beat the Titans at home. And they beat the Chargers. That's one. Oh yeah, the Chargers on the road. So 3 out of their 5 wins have been at home. But like I said, they've played well at home. Let me see if I can see. All right, so against the Bucs, they lost by 10 at home. Against the Broncos, obviously they blew them out. Lost by the Raiders by 3 at home. Beat the Jets at home. Beat the Titans at home. The London game doesn't count as a home game. So yeah, they've only had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 home games. They've won 3 out of those 5. And like I said, I mean, those 2 games that they lost, they still managed to stay in it. That whole Tampa Bay Bucs and Miami Dolphins game when Tampa Bay won 30-20. I mean, the game was 23-20 and Miami was driving down, but they fumbled in the end zone, I think. So that's what made it 30-20. So I mean, it really was closer than the score showed. But yeah, Miami just plays well at home, so we're going to see. Like I said, it's going to be a close game, and I mean, there is some optimism that, you know what, maybe Miami might be able to sneak one out. They've been playing well these last few weeks, and we'll see pretty much if they're able to pull it out. I don't think they're going to be able to. I think the Patriots are going to win this one, as they should. Patriots will move to 12-2. Miami's going to move to 5-8 if they lose. But I mean, if Miami wins, let's go hypotheticals, okay? Let's say if Miami were to win, that's 6-7 right there, and they're only a game back of that 6th spot somehow. Man, the AFC wildcard is terrible. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, in order for Miami to even have a chance, I mean, those Chase Allen, Kiko Alonso, or Lawrence Timmons, whoever's out there playing linebacker, is going to have to contain Dwayne Allen. And I'm talking about Dwayne Allen like he's some great tight end who puts up numbers all the time, and he's not. But it's simply, like I said, Miami's just been that bad when dealing with tight ends. They're going to have to limit Brandon Cooks. They're going to have to limit Danny Amendola. And they're going to have to limit Chris Hogan now that he's back, and they're going to have to, last time they played the Patriots, Deion Lewis popped off for 115 yards, so that rush defense is going to have to play well. And one thing they struggled to do last time was get to Brady. I mean, they only had 1 sack, and they did knock him down a couple of times, but I mean, if you're not sacking the quarterback, it doesn't really matter, so they're going to have to find a way to put Brady on his butt and sack him a few times. And if they're able to get to, that's the one thing that Miami, I know this season they haven't really been able to play well, but the last few seasons, I think they've split before this year, they've split the last 3 seasons, the season series with New England. And I know Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback for that, so obviously they had a better chance than they do tonight. But one of the biggest things that they did in order to beat the Patriots was get to Brady. And when you're getting to Brady, the guy gets flustered. He's going to go complain to the refs because he's not getting enough calls. And that's just what Miami needs to do. That's first and foremost right there. Now that Gronk's not playing, get to Brady, and you're going to have a chance. But, I mean, you also got to rely on Jay Cutler having a good game, or at least playing decently. I know last week against Denver he played well. He had 225 yards, I think it was, 2 touchdowns, did throw 2 picks, but either way, it didn't matter since they still blew out Denver. So, I mean, you're going to need Jarvis Landry to come step up. You're going to need Kenny Stills to play well, okay? And you're going to need Devontae Parker to come out of his shell and finally have a good game. I mean, Devontae Parker, he's been disappointing in his career so far. Miami's had him. This is the 3rd year that they've had him, and it's pretty much you've been waiting for Devontae Parker, like, oh, this is going to be his blowout year. No, next year's going to be his blowout year. And it just simply hasn't happened for him, so he's really going to need to figure it out. But Miami's going to have to pretty much play their best game of the season in order to come away with the win against New England. And, I mean, it's at home. Miami's going to be wearing the throwbacks tonight, so, I mean, I know the game's going to be sold out most likely, so, I mean, the fans are going to be into it. Okay, the players might have a little bit of momentum, some momentum, I guess, since it's a primetime home game, so we're going to see if Miami's able to show up and pull it out. I don't think they're going to be able to. I think New England's going to win this one. It'll be like a 24-17 game, something around those lines. But like I said, the game tonight's going to be a whole lot better than it was a couple of weeks ago when they played. And it's just going to be a fun game to watch, hopefully. I know these Monday night games, last week we had a good one between the Bengals and Steelers, so hopefully this one can deliver too. And I think next week we got What's the Monday night game next week? Let me see if I can find that one out real quick before we close out the show. Let's see. Next week for Monday night, we got waiting for it to load up. Let's see. Bear with me for a quick sec. We got I don't think it's a good Monday night game either, I think. We got the Dallas Cowboys. The Bucks and the Falcons. So, yeah, it's not a good game. So, yeah, just hopefully this one delivers. And because you know what, that Falcons and Bucks game, I'm sad. I got to talk about that one next week on next week's show. But, yeah, it's not going to be a good one. But, yeah, it's going to be a close game tonight, I think. So, we'll see. It's pretty much, I'm looking to see how Kenyon Drake does, really looking to see how Dwayne Allen does, because I think those are the two biggest X factors for both teams right there. But, like I said, we'll see how it all ends up. But I got New England in that one. That's actually going to wrap it up for today's show. To recap, we talked about the Sunday games. The early and afternoon games, recapped each of them, talked about scores and stats like we usually do. Then we talked about Sunday Night Football in that second segment, talked about the Eagles in the third, also talked a little bit about Green Bay. And for this one, we talked about the Monday Night Football game. So, like I said, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow, actually. So, this is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Tapia, and stay tuned. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.